911. What's your emergency? The dispatcher asked calmly. A screechy voice cut through the line. Yes, this is Karen Wilkins of the Willow Creek HOA. There's a trespasser living in the big ranch at the end of Brookside Lane. He's refusing to leave, and my brother is the rightful owner. I need him out immediately. The dispatcher paused. Ma'am, is this a violent situation? Karen huffed. He's not violent. He's just squatting on land my family needs. My brother just got back from Dubai and needs somewhere peaceful to start his goat therapy business. This ranch is perfect, but this man who has no right to be here is standing in our way. At that exact moment, I, Noah Reynolds, was on my back porch sipping my morning coffee. My German shepherd, Duke, rested peacefully at my feet. The land stretched far and wide. Acres of green fields, tall pine trees, and the gentle creek that bordered my property whispered peace. This ranch was my dream, bought with my life savings, maintained with my sweat, and protected with every ounce of patience I had. Then the sirens wailed. 3 police SUVs came tearing up my driveway, dust flying everywhere. I stood confused but calm. Duke growled low. An officer stepped out, hand on his holster. Sir, we received a call about a squatter on this property. Are you the owner? Before I could respond, Karen stormed up the path behind them, hair bobbing with every furious step, eyes locked on me like I had personally stolen Christmas. That's him! That's the trespasser! She yelled, pointing at me like a witch hunter in an old movie. The officer looked confused. Ma'am, please step back, Karen snapped. My brother flew all the way from Dubai. He has goat trauma. He needs calm to recover and start his dream. This land is supposed to be his. I looked at the officer, stunned. Sir, this is my land. I've lived here for 4 years. I have the deed. Do you have it with you? I can get it from the safe inside. Karen shrieked. He's lying. Ask the HOA. We voted that this land should be used for community healing. That's when I realized this wasn't just about land. This woman was dead serious about taking my home for her brother, and she was willing to lie, scream, and weaponize 911 to make it happen. The officer turned to me. Please step back inside and retrieve the deed. I looked back once more at Karen, who was now video recording me shouting, This man is a danger to the neighborhood. And just as I turned the knob to go inside, I saw 2 men I'd never seen before climbing over my back fence, one of them holding bolt cutters, the other carrying a roll of caution tape. They were walking toward my barn. My heart dropped. What were they planning to do back there? Let me take you back to how this madness began. It all started about 3 months ago when I moved into Willow Creek Ranch, a peaceful place far from the chaos of the city. I bought the 10-acre property with savings from my 20 years in construction. After my parents passed, I realized I didn't want to spend the rest of my life boxed in by traffic and buildings. I wanted wide open skies, early mornings with birdsong, and evenings under the stars. So I packed up my tools, my books, and my dog, Duke, and we moved into the ranch. At first, everything was perfect. I fixed up the barn, started a little vegetable patch, and even set up a rainwater system. Duke roamed freely. Life was simple, peaceful. Then came Karen. She introduced herself by stepping onto my porch uninvited, holding a clipboard. Hi, I'm Karen, president of the Willow Creek HOA. You must be new. I nodded politely. Yes, ma'am, just moved in. She didn't smile. This property falls within our HOA jurisdiction. You'll need to review these rules and sign here. I looked down at the paper, then back at her. I'm not part of any HOA. My realtor was clear about that. Her smile twitched. Everything here is under HOA authority, sir. Even if your deed says otherwise, we expect all residents to participate. Thanks, I said, not signing a thing, but I'll stick with what's on my deed. That was the first spark. She showed up 2 days later, snapping photos of my rain barrels. The shine is reflecting into Mrs. Denby's kitchen. Then she complained about the rooster that belonged to my neighbor Sam. Then she sent me a letter, well, more of a ransom note, demanding I remove the eyesore shed on the far end of my land. Each time I ignored her, but she wasn't done. Karen rallied a few other HOA board members to host a meeting when they didn't invite me to. I found out through Sam, who warned me. Karen's up to something, Noah. She's trying to change the zoning rules and claim your land as part of the HOA's shared wellness initiative. I laughed at first. That can't be legal. Sam didn't laugh back. It's Karen. She doesn't care about legal. She cares about control. The weirdest part came the following weekend. I caught Karen and her brother. Yes, the same brother from Dubai, standing on the edge of my property, measuring the land with a wheel and tape like surveyors. I walked over. Can I help you? Karen gave me a stiff smile, just checking where the community boundary ends. I pointed at the rusted metal marker on the ground. Right here. That's the edge of my property. And just to be clear, my land isn't for sale. Her brother, tall, bald, and wearing bright white sneakers, muttered, "It's perfect. Quiet. This is exactly what I need for my goats." Goats? Goats don't live here, I said. And they're not going to. Karen narrowed her eyes. You're not being very neighborly, Noah. I shrugged. That's funny. Neither are you. I thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. The next week I started getting letters. Dozens of them slipped under my door, left in my mailbox, and even stuck to my car windshield. Each one said the same thing. V'd immediately. The HOA has other plans. Some were handwritten, some typed, one had glitter. I reported it to the local sheriff. He raised an eyebrow. Did you just say HOA glitter bombed you? Yep, he sighed. Unfortunately, unless they step foot on your land without permission or commit a crime, there's not much I can do. But if you catch anyone trespassing, call me. That night, I installed cameras. I didn't expect to capture Karen sneaking through my fence gate at 2:37 a.m., staring at my barn like it owed her money. I didn't call the sheriff that time. I just printed the footage and mailed it to her in an envelope marked Smile. But that only made her bolder. And now here we were, with cops at my door, Karen screaming about her brother's goats, and two strangers climbing my fence heading toward my barn with bolt cutters. As I opened the door to retrieve my deed, my mind raced. Why were those men back there? What were they planning to do? Were they trying to damage my barn? Were there more of them? I grabbed the folder with the deed, tucked it under my arm, and turned to head back out. Then bang! A loud crack echoed from the direction of the barn. Duke bolted upright. I ran outside, and what I saw made my stomach twist. One of the men had just smashed the lock off my barn door. The other, he was already dragging something out, my old generator. And then another loud bang, this time not from the barn. It came from the back porch. Someone else was there now, too. What was happening before I could take another step? The barn suddenly lit up in flames. Where are you watching from? Let me know in the comments. This is about to get wild. The flames danced angrily against the night sky, lighting up the entire back half of my ranch. No, I yelled, sprinting toward the barn as Duke barked beside me, ears pinned and teeth bared. One of the trespassers, the one dragging out my generator, panicked and dropped it with a loud clang. The other, the man with the bolt cutters, tripped over a loose hose and stumbled backwards just as the heat intensified. They both ran for the fence, scaling it with the clumsiness of guilt. Karen screamed from the front yard. I didn't tell them to burn anything. The officers immediately radioed for backup and a fire crew. One cop chased after the fleeing men, while the other grabbed a fire extinguisher from his cruiser. But it was too late. The flames were already eating through the dry timber walls of my barn, smoke thick and choking. I grabbed my garden hose and began spraying everything I could, aiming for the base of the fire. Duke barked at the flames like he could bite them away. My heart pounded, not just because of the fire, but because inside the barn was more than just tools and a generator. My late father's saddle, my mother's old rocking chair, and a collection of photos stored in a box near the back. Photos of my family, my childhood, and the very last letter my dad ever wrote me. Gone. By the time the fire trucks rolled in and the sirens filled the valley, most of the barn had been reduced to a smoldering skeleton. Ash floated in the air like burnt feathers. I stood there in shock, covered in soot, my heart breaking. Karen had the audacity to yell from behind the officers. You see, this is why we said you shouldn't live here. Your place is a hazard. One of the younger officers turned and looked at her like she was insane. Ma'am, your people started the fire. They're not my people, she snapped. I just wanted him off the land for my brother's health. I was done being polite. I turned slowly, my voice low, but cutting. You sent 2 men onto my land. They broke into my barn. They stole my generator, and they started a fire that destroyed pieces of my parents' legacy. This is arson. Karen didn't flinch. You're making a mountain out of a molehill, Noah. You knew this land should have been for the community. The officer held up his hand. That's enough, ma'am. We'll need to take your statement downtown. Karen's smile vanished. I'm not under arrest. No, but you're a suspect in a very serious crime. That shut her up. Still, I could see it in her eyes. She wasn't sorry, not even close. After the fire was out and the police took their reports, I walked the burnt remains of my barn. The saddle charred, the old rocking chair collapsed into ashes, and the photos completely gone. Duke wed beside me, pressing his head into my leg. Yeah, buddy, they went too far this time. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop, going over security footage, saving clips, documenting every conversation, every photo of the burned barn. It was time to fight fire with fire. The next morning, I went into town and met with my lawyer, Mr. Collins, old, wise, and sharp as a tack. Asen, on your land? He asked, eyes narrowing. And you have video proof? I nodded, sliding the flash drive across his desk. Well, he said, smiling grimly, this Karen woman is about to find out just how real consequences feel. As he prepped for legal action, I stopped by the sheriff's office and dropped off my own statement. The deputy nodded solemnly. We've dealt with her before, he muttered, always skirting the line. Never like this, though. By the time I got back home, Duke was pacing the front porch, and there, sitting on my driveway, was a small white truck with Willow Creek HOA Compliance Team written on the side in cheap vinyl letters. 2 new men stepped out. One had a clipboard, the other had a shovel. I walked straight over. Can I help you? Clipboard guy cleared his throat. We've been asked to assess the property for community integration. There's been a motion to begin transitioning this space for the HOA's Healing Garden Initiative. I stared at him. You're on private property. We were told it's being reclaimed. By who? He looked down at his clipboard. Karen Wilkins. I didn't say a word. I just pulled out my phone and started filming. Clipboard guy palled. Wait, what are you doing? Documenting. You're trespassing. Leave. But you have 5 seconds before I call the sheriff again. They left, but the message was clear. Karen wasn't backing down. She was ramping up. That night, Sam, my neighbor, the old veteran who raised goats and brewed his own beer, came over with a box of fried chicken and 2 cold drinks. I heard what happened, he said, sitting across from me. Karen's off her rocker. She won't stop, I replied. She called 911. She sent people onto my land. She lit my barn on fire, Sam. Sam looked at me with a serious expression. You need to hit back harder, not just legally, publicly. I raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? He grinned and pulled out a folder. I've been collecting things over the years. HOA scams, fake meetings, illegally raised dues, harassment reports from other folks in the area. Karen's got a paper trail longer than Route 66. I blinked. Why? Sam shrugged. Was waiting for the right moment. Seems like that moment's now. The next morning I met with my lawyer again and showed him the folder. His eyes lit up. This changes everything. That evening I installed floodlights around my property, replaced all the fence locks, and added motion-activated alarms near the barn's remains. And just when I thought things couldn't get any more surreal, a letter showed up, taped to my door. This time it wasn't typed. It was scribbled in red marker. Sloppy, rushed, and unstable. We warned you. Move out by Friday or the next fire will be bigger. No name, no signature, just fear soaked into red ink. And that's when I saw it. Something small, metallic, and blinking under my truck. I crouched down slowly, heart thumping. It was a GPS tracker. They were watching me. I didn't touch the tracker. I just stared at it, blinking under my truck. My breath caught somewhere between fear and fury. Duke stood beside me, tense. His ears perked as if he sensed something was terribly wrong. Who in their right mind puts a GPS tracker on someone's vehicle? I pulled out my phone and took clear pictures. close-ups from every angle. Then I carefully backed away, never touching it, and called the sheriff's department. "Sheriff Daniels here," came the familiar voice. "It's Noah. You're not going to believe this. Someone placed a GPS tracker on my truck." There was a pause. "We're on our way. Don't touch anything." They arrived within 15 minutes. 2 unmarked cruisers, no sirens, no fuss. Sheriff Daniels himself crouched beside me and examined the tracker with a flashlight. His jaw clenched. "Whoever did this," he muttered, "wanted to monitor your every move. He used gloves to remove the device and slipped it into an evidence bag." "This is a whole new level," he said. "We'll run the serial number. If we find out where it came from, we may be looking at stalking charges or worse." "Karen," I said simply. "This smells like Karen." Daniels nodded grimly. I wouldn't be surprised. As they pulled out of the driveway, I stood in the fading light of the evening, feeling more violated than ever before. My land, my barn, and now my privacy. It was all being invaded, and still, Karen strutted free like she owned the valley. But not for long. That night I went through Sam's folder again. It was a goldmine. Reports of Karen forging votes on HOA initiatives, neighbors complaining of harassment, evidence she embezzled community funds to build a private gazebo that she later claimed was for the squirrels. But the most interesting thing, a series of HOA emails printed out about a special accommodation being prepared for her brother, Doug Wilkins. Doug, the mysterious man who just returned from Dubai, the man who needed my ranch for his goat therapy. Something wasn't adding up. I did a quick online search. There were no businesses registered under his name, no therapy licenses, no social media, just one blurry photo from a 2019 mugshot site, public intoxication in Miami. So I kept digging. By morning, I had enough to make coffee tremble in its cup. Doug Wilkins wasn't some international goat therapist. He was a con man, charged twice with fraud, skipped court once, and he'd served 6 months for impersonating a property developer in Nevada. And Karen, she had petitioned the HOA to relocate a resident so that her brother could have a fresh, peaceful environment to rebuild his life. That resident was me. My stomach turned. She wasn't just harassing me for control. She was clearing the way for her criminal brother, and I was standing in their way. I printed every document I found, scanned every HOA complaint, copied every photo and every legal file. I packaged it all neatly and emailed it to my lawyer. Then I backed it up on 2 USB drives, one for me and one for Sam. I wasn't just going to defend myself anymore. I was going to expose them both. The following week, things got eerily quiet. No calls, no Karen, no strangers on the property. It felt wrong, like the calm before a tornado. Until one afternoon I saw it, a for sale sign planted at the far end of my property line. It had the Willow Creek HOA logo on it, my land for sale. Without my permission, I marched down the slope, ripped the sign out of the ground, and called Sheriff Daniels again. "They did what?" he said. "Put a sale sign on my ranch, on my land." He exhaled. "I'll be right over." As we waited, Sam drove up in his rusty old pickup. He handed me a paper. It was a flyer an HOA email blast had gone out the day before. "Coming soon, Willow Creek Healing Ranch, a peaceful goat-based wellness retreat for the community, sponsored by Karen Doug Wilkins." My blood boiled. They were trying to steal my land publicly. I looked at Sam. "This is war." He nodded. "Then let's arm up." We spent the next 2 days gathering witnesses. Neighbors who had received strange calls from Karen. Residents who had seen trucks parked outside my land late at night. One guy said he'd even overheard Karen bragging at a garden party. He won't last long. We're clearing him out. Legal or not. My lawyer filed a restraining order against Karen and Doug, but even that didn't stop them. The next morning I woke up to something even worse. Spray painted on the side of my house in huge red dripping letters. "Get out." I stood there in disbelief. The sheriff was called again. Photos were taken, paint samples collected. But the worst part there were boot prints in the soil. They matched the size of the ones from the barn incident. And right there under the porch was a torn scrap of paper. Half of a flyer that read, "Goat Therapy, coming soon to Willow Creek Ranch." They had been on my porch again, and this time they left a message. Sheriff Daniels looked tired. I swear if we catch them again on your land, without a warrant, we're locking them up. I'm not waiting anymore, I said. It's time I speak directly to the HOA board. You think they'll help? No, but I'll make sure they hear me and everyone else. The next HOA meeting was scheduled for Friday, and I was going to be there with every file, every photo, every threat, and the truth about Doug. But as I sat on my porch that night planning my statement, I saw headlights pull up quietly near the back gate. 2 cars, one of them was Karen's. I flicked off the porch light, grabbed Duke's leash and whispered, "Let's see what these snakes are up to." We crept through the tall grass near the barn's remains. My phone set to record. Duke stayed low, silent. The 2 cars idled, then 4 people stepped out. One of them popped the trunk and pulled out a sledgehammer. I froze. What were they planning to destroy this time? The fencing, my water tanks, and then one of them raised the sledgehammer and pointed toward the well pump. "Oh, no, you don't," I muttered, heart pounding. But just before I could call the sheriff again, Duke growled, then burst from the shadows. All 4 of them screamed as he tore across the field like a furry missile. The sledgehammer dropped with a thud. Flashlights flicked wildly. And then I stepped out behind him, shotgun in hand, not loaded, but loud enough when cocked to stop them cold. I yelled, "Get off my property!" They scattered like mice. Karen screaming, Doug falling face first into the mud. The other 2 crashing into bushes as they scrambled back to the cars. But I got it all on video every second. And this time, there would be no escape. The video was perfect. Crystal clear footage of Karen, Doug, and their little goon squad sneaking onto my ranch under the cover of night, armed with a sledgehammer, flashlights, and a blueprint that one of them accidentally dropped as they ran. The blueprint? It was a rough map of my ranch. But here's the kicker. My house had a red X on it and scribbled in the margin. Remove pump. Force him off grid. Deadline Monday. I sent the video and the blueprint to my lawyer before the sun came up. Within the hour, he responded, "This is criminal conspiracy, Noah. We're filing charges today. Also, send this to the sheriff now." I did exactly that. Sheriff Daniels showed up with a new tone. This wasn't a neighborly warning anymore. This was law enforcement in full gear. They brought in 2 deputies and a forensic photographer. They took soil samples, boot impressions, and even combed through the bushes to recover the abandoned blueprint. Karen had finally crossed the last line. Still, I didn't celebrate. Not yet, because HOA meeting Friday was coming, and I had a plan. Friday evening arrived like a storm cloud. The Willow Creek HOA meetings were usually sleepy small-town affairs. Cookies, lemonade, and Karen standing at the front like she was hosting a royal banquet. But this one packed. Word had spread fast. People from all around the community showed up, some out of curiosity, some out of concern, and some just to watch the fireworks. I walked in wearing jeans, boots, and a dusty flannel shirt. Duke sat calmly at my heel, leash in hand. My lawyer, Mr. Collins, walked beside me in a sharp navy suit. Sam was there too, arms crossed and face stone serious. Karen spotted me from across the room and stiffened like she'd seen a ghost. Doug, he was hiding in the back, sunglasses on indoors like some washed-up movie villain. Karen cleared her throat and called the meeting to order. "Let's all welcome everyone," she began sweetly. "Tonight's agenda is our exciting new project, the Willow Creek Healing Ranch." Scattered claps, polite confusion. "Karen," I said loudly, stepping forward, "before you sell everyone on lies, I'd like 5 minutes." "Just 5, she blinked. "This is an HOA board meeting, not open mic night." But before she could wave me off, a voice from the crowd called out, "Let the man speak." Then another, "We deserve to know what's going on." Karen looked around nervously, then gave a stiff nod. "Fine, 5 minutes." I walked to the front, plugged my USB drive into the laptop connected to the projector, and took a deep breath. "Ladies and gentlemen," I began, "my name is Noah Reynolds. I live at Willow Creek Ranch. 4 months ago, I bought the land with my life savings after working 20 years in construction. I was told very clearly that my property was not under HOA jurisdiction. But since moving in, I've been harassed, threatened, targeted. I clicked the first slide. A photo of my burnt barn filled the screen. Gasps. This is what Karen's campaign has done. These are the results of her obsession with stealing my land. Not for the community, but for her brother, a man she claims is a healer. Click. Doug's mugshot appeared. Charge, fraud, impersonation, public intoxication. Someone in the crowd whispered, "Oh my God," Karen shouted. "This is slander." "Sit down, Karen," a woman barked. "You told us he was a therapist." Click. A video clip played. Karen and her crew sneaking onto my property, sledgehammer flashlights running when Duke chased them, and the final image, the blueprint. My house marked for sabotage. Dead silence until Sam stood and growled. "Tell him about the GPS tracker." More gasps. I nodded. "They placed a GPS device under my truck. I have filed criminal complaints. The sheriff's department is investigating this as conspiracy and attempted destruction of property." I was quiet. I tried to handle this with grace, but now I look directly at Karen. "Now I will make sure none of you forget what you saw here tonight." The room erupted. Some people shouted, some cried, some demanded Karen step down. A few even walked out. Karen screamed, "This is a lie, he's manipulating you." But Doug, he just stood up, dropped his sunglasses, and ran out the back door like a coward. Mr. Collins stood next to me and announced, "We will also be suing the HOA for harassment, property damage, and emotional distress. Every name listed as supporting Karen's illegal motions will be held accountable unless they resign immediately." About a third of the board stood up and resigned on the spot. Karen looked like she might faint. Later that night, as I sat on my porch again, the quiet finally felt real. Not like silence before a storm, but peace after a war. Then headlights. My heart skipped, but it was Sam pulling up slow, his old truck rattling. He stepped out and handed me a wrapped package. "Something I fixed for you." I opened it carefully, my father's saddle scorched but restored. "You got it out?" I asked barely. "Thought you might need something good to hold on to." I stood there, eyes watering. "Thanks, Sam." He nodded and looked out at the stars. "You did it, Noah. You stood your ground." Just as I turned to head inside, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I picked it up. A voice whispered, "Low and dangerous." "You think it's over?" "Doug has friends, Noah. Real ones. You'll regret ever touching him." I froze. The call ended, and just like that, I realized Karen might be finished. But Doug was just getting started. I stood there on the porch, phone still in my hand, the final words of that chilling call echoing in my head. "Doug has friends, Noah. Real ones." The line had gone dead, but the threat hung heavy in the air. Duke sat silently at my feet, head tilted, eyes alert. He could feel the tension. "Looks like we've got more company coming," I muttered. And I was right. The next few days felt like walking on a wire over a pit of snakes. I filed the call report with Sheriff Daniels first thing the next morning. He listened carefully, face unreadable. "That sounded like a burner phone," he said. "Probably untraceable, but I'll notify patrol to make more rounds near your property." "Sheriff," I said, voice calm but firm, "I don't want a round. I want a plan." He gave me a long look. "Noah, you're a good man, but don't do anything that'll land you in cuffs." "I won't," I replied, "unless someone steps onto my land again." That night I reinforced everything. Extra locks on the gates, motion lights along the back fence, and hidden cameras I ordered online, tucked under tree branches and fence posts. I even installed wireless floodlights triggered by movement. I wasn't going to sleep through another ambush, but the next strike didn't come in the dark. It came through the county. A plain white envelope showed up in my mailbox stamped with a seal from the county property development office. I tore it open and read aloud. "Notice of application for eminent domain review. Subject property, Willow Creek Ranch." My breath caught. They were trying to take my land legally. I drove straight to the courthouse, paperwork in hand, stormed into the clerk's office and demanded answers. The clerk, a tired woman with big glasses and a bigger coffee mug, scanned the paper. "Oh," she said, "this was submitted under new development code 14C17. Looks like it's for a public wellness facility proposed by the Willow Creek Community Association." I stared at her. "Karen's HOA. She blinked. Yes, that name's here. Karen Wilkins and Doug Wilkins are listed as lead stakeholders. They're trying to seize my land to build a goat therapy center. It's private land. I own it outright. She frowned and lowered her voice. You'll need to file a formal opposition within 14 days or they can request a hearing. I was already pulling out my phone. I'll file it today. That evening, Mr. Collins came to my house with a file in hand. You're not going to like this, he said. Doug's playing dirty. He dropped the file on my table. Inside were copies of documents submitted by Karen and Doug. False claims about my land being abandoned, that I lacked clear ownership, and even statements from neighbors. All fake names complaining about hazards and disrepair. Collins shook his head. They're throwing everything at the wall, hoping something sticks. They burned my barn, I said. They put a tracker on my truck. Now they're lying to the government. They're desperate, but they made a mistake. He handed me another sheet. This isn't just an HOA scam anymore. It's fraud at a county level. That's felony territory. I'm contacting a state prosecutor next. Despite the stress, I finally felt something I hadn't in weeks. Hope. Then 2 days later, I found a note stuffed under my back gate, crudely written in black Sharpie on lined notebook paper. Count your days, country boy. That night, I sat on the porch again, shotgun across my lap, not loaded, just in sight. Duke rested at my feet, but his ears twitched at every sound. And then the headlights came. 2 cars again. Same dark models, same quiet approach. This time they didn't pull up to the gate. They parked along the road and just sat there. Engines running, lights off, watching. I turned on every floodlight, and just like that, they sped off into the night. The next morning, I found the side fence cut clean through like it had been done with a power saw. One of the camera units had been smashed. I looked down, heart pounding. Next to the fence post was a fresh goat hoof print, but I didn't own goats. Doug did. By Wednesday, the story broke online. A small local blog, The Valley Voice, published a piece titled HOA President and Ex-Con Brother Accused of Land Grab and Arson in Willow Creek. It went viral. Photos, documents, video screenshots, interviews with Sam, and even a sheriff's statement confirming an investigation. The article lit a fire across town. HOA members resigned. Residents held a protest. Karen's face was plastered online as a ranch thief. And Doug vanished again until Thursday. That's when everything changed. I came home late from a meeting with Collins and found my front door slightly ajar. I froze. Duke growled. My heart pounded as I stepped inside slowly, gripping the baseball bat I kept behind the door. Hello, I called out. No response. I flipped on the light. Living room untouched. Kitchen quiet. Then I heard it, the soft hum of a machine coming from the hallway. I crept forward, turned the corner, and found my office door wide open. My computer gone, drawers ripped open, files missing. They'd broken in, and they took my evidence. I rushed outside, breathing hard, trying to call the sheriff again. That's when I saw it painted across my garage door in thick red spray. Goats will inherit the earth, and just below it, taped with duct tape, a fresh printed sign. Coming soon, Willow Creek Healing Ranch, funded by the community, powered by nature, built by force. I clenched my jaw. This wasn't about wellness. This was a takeover, and if I didn't stop them now, there might not be a ranch left to save. The morning after the break-in, I stood in front of the garage door, spray-painted, defiled, violated, and something inside me finally snapped. I wasn't just going to defend my land anymore. I was going to go on the offense. I drove straight to the sheriff's office with Duke in the passenger seat, my bat still in the truck bed. Sheriff Daniels met me in the parking lot before I even got to the door. They hit you again? He asked, jaw already tightening. They stole my laptop, I said. Busted my office open, took legal documents and evidence. This is beyond HOA harassment. This is organized crime. He didn't argue. Come in, he said. Inside, they reviewed security footage from my remaining cameras. One caught a masked figure prying open my window. Another showed a man in a hoodie. Doug dragging my computer out to the fence and loading it into a waiting van. But the clearest shot was of a goat. A pure white goat tied to my mailbox chewing on the flag. Its name tag said justice. That's when Daniels finally said it. Okay, Noah, we're pressing full charges. This has gone from property dispute to breaking and entering, theft, vandalism, stalking, and attempted land seizure. The county prosecutor was looped in within hours. I gave a full deposition and handed over every remaining file, USB backup, and written report I had. But I wasn't done yet. That evening, Sam and I set up camp on my porch. Not for comfort, for defense. Rifles unloaded but visible. Spotlights, motion sensors, and Sam's two friends, veterans like him, who agreed to rotate overnight watch. This is your land, Sam said. You earned it, and if Karen or Doug want it, they'll have to come through all of us. Meanwhile, the Valley Voice dropped another bombshell. County confirms criminal investigation into HOA president's family. State charges likely. The headlines spread faster than wildfire. Karen's picture went from Facebook timelines to local news segments. Residents began removing themselves from the Willow Creek HOA completely. Some even started organizing to have the entire board dissolved. But Doug, he didn't just vanish this time. He struck back. Saturday morning, I received a certified letter via courier. The return address was a law firm I'd never heard of. Inside the letter read, "Dear Mr. Reynolds, you are hereby ordered to vacate the property at Willow Creek Ranch within 72 hours. The new legal representative of the Willow Creek Cooperative Community has claimed eminent authority over the land and property due to unpaid HOA back dues, community distress, and environmental damage caused under your teeny. Failure to vacate will result in forced removal and seizure of assets under HOA mandated corrective procedures. This notice is final. Sincerely, Silverback Legal Associates." I burst out laughing. Unpaid dues. I wasn't part of the HOA environmental damage. My vegetable garden was practically a national treasure. I called my lawyer, Collins. He read the letter over the phone, then chuckled darkly. "Silverback Legal isn't even a licensed firm in this state, and you'll love this. Guess who incorporated it 2 weeks ago?" "Don't say it," he did. "Doug Wilkins, using a fake LLC number and a borrowed P.O. box from a UPS store." I hung up and immediately posted the full letter on a local Facebook group tagging the Valley Voice, the Sheriff's Department, and every HOA member still online. By noon, the post had over 3,000 shares, and the comments were brutal. "This is madness. They're running a cult, not an HOA." I stand with Noah, but the real surprise came late that afternoon when my front gate creaked open and a black SUV rolled onto my gravel driveway. For a second, I froze. "Doug, more trouble?" But when the door opened, a tall woman in a tailored pantsuit stepped out. "Mr. Reynolds?" she asked. "Yes, my name is Stephanie Cruz. I'm an investigator with the state attorney's office. Mind if I come in?" I led her to the porch and she sat across from me, pulling out a folder. "We've been following the developments here. Between your documentation, the break-in reports, and the media attention, our office has taken particular interest in Mr. Doug Wilkins and Miss Karen Wilkins." I nodded cautious. "Mr. Wilkins has been under scrutiny in 2 other counties. Attempted real estate fraud in Nevada and zoning violations in Florida. This is the first time he's used a registered HOA to attempt hostile property seizure." I leaned in. "So what does that mean?" "It means we're issuing an arrest warrant for Doug, and Karen will likely face charges for aiding and abetting, conspiracy, and criminal harassment. Your video evidence sealed it. For the first time in weeks, my shoulders relaxed, but the relief didn't last long, because less than 5 hours later, Doug showed up at my gate, driving the same white truck that had pulled up during the barn fire. He didn't hide, didn't sneak. He parked boldly, walked up to the gate, and stood just on the edge of my property. I stepped out onto the porch. "What do you want, Doug?" He grinned like a villain in a bad soap opera. "Just wanted to say goodbye." "Good, because the state's saying it too, permanently." He chuckled. "You think this is over? You think some badge and a blog are going to stop the work we started?" "I think evidence will." He took one step closer to the gate, but didn't cross it. "You don't get it, Noah. This land isn't just for goats and grass. It's for legacy. My legacy. And Karen, she was protecting me like family does. You're a fraud, I said. You always were. He grinned wider. Then why does your whole town know my name now? I didn't answer because suddenly 3 unmarked cars came flying up the road. Doug turned his head just in time to see state investigator Cruz step out, holding a file in one hand and a badge in the other. Doug Wilkins, she said calmly. You're under arrest. His smile died. You can't arrest me on his land, he barked. This isn't about his land. This is about yours, the ones you tried to steal from dozens of victims across state lines. 2 agents moved in. Doug tried to run, didn't get 10 feet before Duke tackled him to the dirt, barking like the 4th of July. They cuffed him right there beside the gate he never crossed. As they shoved him into the back of the SUV, he shouted over his shoulder, I'll be back. You can't kill a legacy. I shouted back, You never had one. And with that, the white truck pulled away for the last time. But as I stepped back onto the porch, heart pounding, Sam walked up holding a piece of mail. Delivered this morning. Looks like Karen left you a goodbye gift. I opened it slowly. Inside was a handwritten letter. You think you've won, but there's always someone above the law. Enjoy your ranch while it lasts. The HOA never forgets. Karen. I looked at Sam. She's gone. Doug's in cuffs. But this still isn't over, is it? Sam shook his head. Not yet. The final straw came on a Sunday morning. Just when the sky was clear, the birds were chirping, and the ranch finally felt calm again. That's when the helicopter appeared. Not a big one, just a small private chopper. But it circled low over my ranch, blades chopping the air like thunder. Dust kicked up everywhere. Duke barked nonstop, and the horses in the neighboring field scattered. It hovered for a moment above the ruins of my barn, then banked hard and flew back over my house before disappearing over the ridge. I stood there on the porch, fists clenched. Sam walked up from his truck, wide-eyed. You see that? Yeah, I said, voice flat. Let me guess, Karen. He nodded. You're not going to believe this, but rumor is she never left town. She's been hiding out with her cousin on the other side of the valley, and she's planning something. I didn't ask where he got his intel. Sam had his ways. That night, my lawyer Collins called. Noah, I just got word Karen's filed an appeal to block the state's charges. Claims she's being targeted unfairly. Says you're a domestic threat and an armed extremist. I laughed out loud. Armed extremist? Because I sit on my porch with a dog and a shotgun? She's hoping to delay prosecution, but the state isn't buying it. Still, the helicopter stunt. That was bold. And it wasn't just a scare tactic because 2 hours later, my generator went dead. I checked the panel. Wires were snipped. Then I found tire tracks behind the pump house and fresh boot prints near the fence. Smaller than Doug's Karen's, she'd come back. Monday morning, I drove straight to the courthouse. I wasn't asking for help anymore. I was demanding protection. By noon, I had a judge sign permanent restraining order against both Karen and Doug, backed by video evidence, criminal filings, and sworn testimony from multiple neighbors. But just to be safe, I took extra steps. I had 2 new security cameras installed on the back trail, a solar-powered generator setup, floodlights hooked to silent alarms, and Sam, he brought over 2 of his old military buddies to help me build something special. A gate. Not just any gate, an electrified one, solar-powered, fully legal, and tall enough to make Karen think twice about climbing anything again. But the final showdown didn't come until Friday night. It was raining, the kind of slow, steady rain that drizzled off the roof and drummed on the porch rail. I sat with Duke and a cup of coffee, watching the security monitor glow in the corner. Motion alert, back trail. I tapped the feed, and there she was. Karen, wearing a dark poncho, hood up, mud on her face, and dragging what looked like a gas can. I grabbed my flashlight and stepped outside, staying low. She didn't see me. She was heading toward the barn ruins again. I crept up behind her, flashlight still off, until I was close enough to hear her muttering. He stole everything. Everything. Doug should have had this, not him. She uncapped the gas, poured it into the soil, pulled a lighter from her pocket. That's when I flipped on the floodlight. Karen froze, soaked in rain, eyes wide like a cornered raccoon. I stepped forward, calm but firm. Drop it, Karen, right now. She spun toward me, face wild. You ruined my life. You did that yourself. You don't deserve this land. It's not about what I deserve. It's about what's mine. And you're not stealing anything else. She raised the lighter with a shaking hand, but she never got the chance to flick it because two cruisers roared up the trail, tires spitting gravel. Sam's military buddies emerged from the trees, rifles slung but ready, and Sheriff Daniels stepped out with a waterproof folder in hand. Karen Wilkins, he said loudly over the rain, you are under arrest for violation of a court order, attempted arson, trespassing, and criminal conspiracy. Karen dropped the lighter, collapsed into the mud, and screamed. They cuffed her, read her rights, and loaded her into the cruiser. As the red and blue lights reflected off the puddles, Daniels walked over to me, sighing. You okay? I nodded, finally. The next week it was all over town. Karen Wilkins, former HOA president, sentenced to 5 years for conspiracy and attempted arson. Doug had already taken a plea deal, 18 months behind bars with restitution and permanent HOA disqualification. Karen, she went down fighting, even tried to claim the goat had made her do it. Didn't work. The Willow Creek HOA was formally dissolved. The board was replaced by a new volunteer committee, folks who believed in community, not control. As for me, I rebuilt my barn, planted new trees along the edge of the land. Sam gave me one of his goats, ironically named it Karen. She's peaceful, quiet, and headbutts the fence when strangers come near. Fitting. And every night I sit on that same porch, coffee in hand, Duke by my side, and smile as the wind rolls through the valley, because the land is mine. Not just by paper, but by fight, by fire, by truth, and by the will to never back down no matter who tries to take it. Let me know where you're watching from, and if you stood your ground like Noah, what would you have done when HOA Karen came knocking? And don't forget to like, comment, and follow for more jaw-dropping HOA tales and justice-served stories.